The high levels of crime in South Africa know no bounds. Even VIP citizens travelling with security are not safe from brazen criminals. The latest victim is Transport Minister Sindisiwe Chikunga, who was robbed with her bodyguards on the N3 highway in the early hours of Monday morning. A manhunt has since been launched by police for the suspects, but for now questions are being raised around police training and whether it's effective. Let's get the views of criminologist Dr. Guy Lamb. Thank you very much, Doc, for your time here on eNCA. Now, first of all, the question that I asked Bafedile, right? Now police can see through their VIP protectors how uneasy it is, the advice that they've given to citizens to say, if you are hit by spikes on the highway, keep going.
Well, I mean, it is a very kind of difficult scenario because it's, you've got to take these kind of considerations of safety into account. I mean, if your tires are damaged on your vehicle, you may actually result in a crash and people may be injured. So you have to make a decision in the moment. And I think also in certain circumstances where you assess the situation, you may deem it's not a high risk situation. You may just deem there happens to be a sharp object coincidentally on the road and you get a puncture. Or in other circumstances where you may be in dangerous areas and there's sharp objects on the side of the road, you don't stop. And so it all depends on the context.
Also, for me, Doc, it also is a balance of things, right? When police do make this arrest, if it's going to be a very quick one, it's going to look a type of way to South Africans, right? Especially those who have fallen victim to this particular crime on the same route and they haven't gotten justice. So there's that balancing that police have to do.
It is a balancing, but also when it comes down to, we see it in South Africa and many other countries all the time when prominent people fall victims of crime, there is often a lot more concerted effort to address that issue, to try and arrest perpetrators. So unfortunately, that's the reality that we face globally.
All right. So, when we look at the scene, Bafedile Moerane is on the scene there exactly or more or less where the robbery happened on Monday morning. And it looks quite strategic. We are going into the festive season, so there'll be more of these. But it's very strategic in that it's very far from off-ramps where there'd be petrol stations nearby for you to continue driving. And also, it looks like a part of the highway that can be very dark in the evening.
Yeah, we've seen this happening for many, many years where you get specific gangs. They specialize in this form of robbery where they'll put objects in the road, whether it's bricks, whether it's tires, whether it's sharp objects, with a view to get motorists to stop. It's typically done in, late at night or early hours of the morning when it's dark. And as a result, because of the damage to the vehicle, motorists stop, because often if you're in the middle of nowhere, you think, well, it's not that dangerous. I've damaged my vehicle. Let me address and assess the situation. In certain areas, for example, it sometimes happens along the N2 in Cape Town, where it's sort of on the side of the roads. They've got signs up saying, don't stop here because it is quite dangerous. High robbery areas, people may not stop there. But in these kind of situations where there aren't that many people, kind of living in the area, you would typically say, well, let me stop and address this problem so that I don't have a car accident as a result of it. So these gangs do think strategically about, they do think about, to what degree can we reduce the risk for us that we don't get shot at, but also around how can we be successful. And I think, they tend to look for these sorts of environments.
And for me, I'd assume, right, that if it's a minister, there's also blue lights, and the criminals just went ahead anyway. But there's also the question of, besides the fact that maybe criminals don't respect blue light vehicles anymore, there's also a question around the fact that anybody can get blue lights in South Africa these days. And I understand that there's a law that prohibits this from happening.
Absolutely. There's two components in terms of what you're asking. I think in this particular scenario, it seems as though it was just coincidental. They were looking to rob motorists going by, and the minister and, her protectors just happened to be going past. So probably the blue lights didn't play much of a role in this. That's me just speculating now, but that's certainly a possibility here. In terms of accessing blue lights, unfortunately, there seems to be illegal ways of acquiring them, and we've seen individuals into thinking that the police are the motorists. So that is something that it is against the law to certainly acquire and use if you're not authorized to do that, but it has been used by criminal syndicates in the past as well.
And I think we've actually even seen it with a certain MEC, if I'm not mistaken, a former MEC in Limpopo who used to have travel with blue lights, but her security was private security. So that also confused me. And even there, then we see, non-policing of that issue.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of whole issue of blue lights in the case of individuals who are in, prominent VIP type positions who may not be entitled to blue lights generally make use of blue lights so they can get from one place to another, as also kind of demonstrates, their sort of sense of importance. But also it's around that, it's more about I'm not prepared to drive the way that other people are prepared to drive, but it's also the sense around these blue lights give me status and demonstrates that very clearly.
And my last question, Doc, we heard from Heidi Jokos, an interview she conducted with the Provincial Police Commissioner, saying that he wrote to the Premier's Office of Gauteng in 2020 or 2021, that's 2 to 3 years ago, about the 10 hotspots, including that very hotspot, and he says nothing was done. So this is one of those cases where we cannot only blame police, especially if an area has been a hotspot for a couple of years.
I mean, there's multiple stakeholders in all of this, but the problem is, some areas may be a hotspot at a certain point in time and then are no longer a hotspot. And I think the issue really depends with this type of crime on the activities of specific gangs. So, and these kind of gangs are mobile, so they would be moving from area to area. So that tip may have been investigated and may have been determined that it wasn't high risk, but the problem is, it wasn't high risk then, but now certainly it is high risk. So it is a very difficult type of scenario to respond to.
Dr. Guy Lamb, thank you so much for speaking to us here on eNCA. Always a pleasure. Dr. Guy Lamb is a criminologist.